I can't breathe here anymore. I need you now.
Her voice didn't just crack, it shattered, the sound of a woman who had held the weight of the world on her shoulders finally buckling under the strain. Mascara, thick and black, carved rivers of grief down cheeks that had forced a smile for far too long. It dripped onto the lavender bridesmaid dress, a garment she had paid $400 for, a dress that felt less like silk and more like a constriction device. It was the elegant, slim-fitting design her mother, Victoria, had insisted on, fully aware that Alara would struggle to zip it over her hips. Through the phone, Ryu Sanjay's voice cut through the humid night air like a blade wrapped in velvet, dark, authoritative, and instantly grounding. I'm on my way. Stay exactly where you are. Do not move. Hey, everyone. To truly understand how Alara King ended up sobbing in the shadowed corner of a luxury parking lot while her sister's wedding reception roared with laughter without her, we have to rewind. We need to go back before the tears, before the heartbreak. We need to go back to a family that treated her existence like a burden, and a man who looked at her like she was the oxygen he needed to survive. Stick around, because this isn't just a love story, it's a rescue mission. 8 months earlier, the world looked very different. Alara King stood in the center of a stainless steel storm. She was directing her catering team in the kitchen of Obsidian, an ultra-upscale venue in Koreatown, Manhattan. The space was a masterpiece of industrial chic, sleek surfaces, expensive lighting, and filled with men who looked like they owned skyscrapers for sport. These were men who had likely never washed a dish in their lives, but watched the room with a predatory awareness that missed nothing. More cinnamon, Alara commanded, her voice cutting through the clatter of pots and pans. She tasted a sample spoon her sous chef handed her, her brow furrowing in deep concentration, and a hint of cardamom. It needs warmth. She moved down the line, her eyes scanning the prep stations like a general inspecting troops. And somebody tell me why this ganache has split? We do not serve broken chocolate in my kitchen. Fix it. Now. Her team scrambled, a flurry of yes, chef, echoing off the tiled walls. Alara moved through them not frantically, but with the fluid grace of a conductor. She fixed emulsions with a flick of her wrist, tasted sauces, adjusted seasoning. She had learned early in life that competence was the only shield that worked. In spaces like this, expensive, male-dominated, and dripping with unspoken danger, confidence was her armor. She didn't flinch when one of the broad-shouldered security guards brushed past her, his suit jacket bulging slightly at the side. She had a job to do, and Alara King never failed to deliver. From across the room, in a shadowed booth that offered the best vantage point of the entire venue, Ryu Sanjay watched her. He didn't watch her with casual interest. He watched her with the focused, unblinking intensity of a tiger that had just spotted something rare in the jungle. His second-in-command, Hoon, leaned in close, his voice a low rumble. "Boss, you're staring." Sanjay didn't blink. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, his eyes tracking Alara as she wiped a smudge of flour from her cheek, a gesture so unself-conscious and human amidst the high-gloss perfection of the room. "Find out everything about her." Hoon checked his tablet. "I can get her file from the manager in 5 minutes. I think her name is Alara. Alara King. Not the file." Sanjay's dark eyes narrowed slightly as he watched Alara laugh at something a dishwasher said, her smile lighting up the sterile kitchen. Everything else. Service ended 2 hours later. The adrenaline of the rush had faded, replaced by the dull ache in Alara's lower back. Her team packed up with military efficiency, loading crates and scrubbing surfaces while she performed the final inventory checks. She was wiping down the last granite counter, the smell of sanitizer mixing with the lingering scent of truffle oil, when a pair of polished, handmade Italian leather shoes appeared in her peripheral vision. "Stay for dinner." She turned, startled. The man addressing her was tall, imposing in a way that sucked the air out of the immediate vicinity. He was wearing a suit that cost more than her car, tailored so perfectly it looked like a second skin. He looked untouchable. Dangerous. "That's very kind of you," Alara said, her professional mask sliding instantly into place. She offered a polite, practiced smile. "But I really need to get home. I insist." He stepped closer. It wasn't a threatening move, but it was deliberate. It encroached on her personal space just enough to make her heart rate spike. Your work tonight was exceptional. It deserves to be celebrated. Alara checked her watch. 9:15 p.m. Her stomach dropped like a stone. The air in her lungs seemed to freeze. I really can't. I need to be home by 10 o'clock. Something flickered across her face. It was a micro-expression, there and gone in a heartbeat, but it was undeniable. Anxiety. Maybe even terror. Her shoulders, which had been square and confident all night, tensed up toward her ears. Sanjay noticed. He noticed everything. It's a 30-minute drive to Queens from here, he said, his voice smooth, calculating. You have time. I really don't. She was already gathering her things, her movements rushed now, almost frantic. The professional composure was cracking, revealing a scared young woman underneath. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Your manager has my card if you need catering again. She left. She didn't walk, she practically fled. Every man in the room felt the shift in the atmosphere. The way their boss went perfectly still, his gaze fixed on the door where she had vanished. Boss? Hoon asked carefully, sensing the temperature drop. Find out who makes a grown woman run home at 9:30 on a Thursday night like Cinderella escaping the ball, Sanjay said. His voice was quiet, lethal. And find out why she looked terrified. In the weeks that passed, Alara's phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was bizarre. Suddenly, this specific client, Ryu Sanjay, had an endless stream of events, and he requested her specifically. Corporate lunches, late-night executive meetings, private gallery openings. The pay was absurd. Triple her normal rate. And he didn't negotiate. He didn't haggle. He just sent over contracts with numbers that made Maya, her business partner, choke on her morning coffee. Someone likes your cooking, Maya said, eyes widening as she looked at the 5th booking request of the month. Like, really, really likes it. Someone likes throwing money around to show off, Alara corrected, trying to sound dismissive. But her stomach fluttered traitorously. At each event, he was there. He wasn't just a passive host, he was a presence. He watched her work with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, yet somehow it wasn't. It felt attentive. He asked questions about the dishes, not polite small talk, but genuine inquiries about her process, her inspiration, the balance of flavors. The conversation stretched longer with each visit. He started requesting she stay after service just to discuss future menus. They both knew it wasn't about menus. 6 weeks after they met, Sanjay stopped pretending. The catering staff was cleaning up around them, the clinking of silverware the only sound in the penthouse suite. Have dinner with me, he said. He was leaning against a marble pillar, his arms crossed, his eyes locked on hers. Not business. Just us. Ilara's heart kicked against her ribs so hard she thought he might hear it. I don't think that's a good idea, Mr. Ryu. Why not? She could have lied. She should have lied. She could have said she had a boyfriend, or that she was busy, or that she didn't date clients. Instead, a rare, raw honesty spilled out of her. My family won't approve. You're not what they want from me. You're not black, and I'm not. I'm not their version of acceptable anyway. Something dangerous flickered across his face, a shadow of irritation, not at her, but at the invisible chains she seemed to be wearing. He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she could smell the rich, woodsy scent of his cologne. It smelled like power and cedar. I'm not going to date your family, Alara. The words rewrote the gravity in the room. Okay, she whispered. Their first real date was at an intimate French restaurant in Tribeca. It was the kind of place where the lighting was low and golden, and the menus didn't have prices. Sanjay ordered half the menu without asking her, simply telling the waiter to bring the best of everything. Taste everything, he told her. Choose what you like. Ilara's instinct was to demur, to eat light, to pick at a salad and pretend she wasn't hungry. Years of her mother's voice echoing in her head, Alara, watch your portion sizes. Alara, men don't like women who eat like linebackers, had trained that reflex bone deep. The duck arrived, a perfect sear, resting in a pool of cherry gastrique. The smell alone was poetry, savory, sweet, rich. She took one small, tentative bite, then set down her fork. You're not eating, Sanjay observed. His voice was soft, but it carried that edge of command. I tasted while you ordered. I'm fine, really. You made food for 60 people at that corporate event earlier today. He leaned forward, his elbows on the linen tablecloth. Where was yours? I ate before. A granola bar. Alara. The way he said her name made her spine tingle. He slid her plate closer to him, cut a perfect slice of the duck, capturing a bit of the crispy skin and the sauce, and held out his fork to her lips. Eat. I want to watch you enjoy your meal. Her eyes burned with sudden, unshed tears. My family says I enjoy food too much already. Sanjay's hand clenched around his steak knife. The muscle in his jaw jumped, a rhythmic tick of suppressed violence. When he spoke, his voice was deadly soft. Your family is wrong. Open. She opened her mouth. She took the bite. Then another. His eyes tracked every movement of her lips, her throat. There was something hungry and possessive in his gaze that should have scared her. It didn't. It made her feel seen, worshipped. Tell me about them, he said. The wine helped. So did the way he listened, like every word she spoke was a piece of intelligence he needed to file away. She told him about her mother, Victoria King, a former beauty queen who had never forgiven Alara for being born curvy instead of willowy. She spoke about her father, Dr. Marcus King, the renowned surgeon who funded their lavish lifestyle, but felt nothing for his children unless they were achieving something he could brag about at the country club. She talked about Bianca, the golden child, and Serena, the accomplished attorney. And finally, she spoke about herself, Alara, the disappointment who played with flour and sugar instead of getting a real career. What do you mean, rent? Sanjay interrupted. She had been talking about her living situation. For the guest house, Alara explained, tracing the rim of her wine glass. I live in the guest house on the estate. I pay them monthly. It's fair. I'm 26. Nothing about this is fair. His fingers drummed once against the table, a sharp, agitated sound. You are their daughter. You are not a tenant. I'm the embarrassment, she corrected, the words tasting bitter like bile. Wrong size. Wrong career. Wrong everything. His hand covered hers across the table. His palm was warm, solid, and calloused in a way that surprised her. You are extraordinary, he said, his eyes locking onto hers with a ferocity that stole her breath. If they can't see that, they aren't just blind, Alara. They're stupid. Something cracked open in her chest. A dam she didn't know she had built began to leak. The relationship grew in secret. Stolen nights in the city, careful planning to avoid being seen near her family's social circles. Nothing went online. Sanjay learned the depth of her family's cruelty in increments that made his rage build like a rising tide. He learned about the weight comments masked as health concerns. He saw the text messages comparing her to her sisters. He discovered that they charged her for everything: rent, utilities, even parking her delivery van in the family driveway during events, while Bianca and Serena lived rent-free in other family properties. He learned she had paid for culinary school herself by working 3 jobs, that she sent her mother exotic flowers every week only to be criticized for the arrangement, that she made every family birthday cake for free and still got called selfish if the frosting wasn't the exact shade of ecru they wanted. Each revelation made his jaw tighter. Each story made his plans more detailed. Before we go any further, I have to ask you something. Alara is opening up to a stranger because her own blood relatives treat her like a transaction. Have you ever found yourself over-explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you? Have you ever poured love into a black hole, hoping that this time it would be enough to get a thank you? If Alara's struggle is hitting a nerve, if you know what it feels like to be the black sheep just because you shine a different color, smash that subscribe button right now. Don't just watch, join us. So you can see Alara finally realize her worth and stand up to the people who tore her down. 2 months into their relationship, Bianca announced her engagement to Sterling Hughes, the son of a prominent investment banker. The wedding would be in 6 months. It was going to be the event of the season, lavish, perfect, and exactly what Victoria King had dreamed of. I have to help, Alara told Sanjay. They were curled together on the sprawling velvet sofa in his penthouse, the city skyline twinkling beneath them like spilled diamonds. She's my sister, she added, sensing his tension. What did they ask you to do? Sanjay asked, his fingers idly tracing patterns on her arm. Make the cake. His arm tightened around her instantly. For free. It's complicated, Sanjay. It is not. His voice was gentle but firm, like iron wrapped in silk. Families do not charge rent to their children and then demand free labor worth thousands of dollars. That is not complicated. That is exploitation. That is cruel. You don't understand, she whispered. If I do this, maybe they'll finally see me. Maybe they'll see I'm good at this. Then help me understand. He shifted, pulling back so he could look into her eyes. Explain why you break your back for people who break your heart. The dam broke. It wasn't a pretty, cinematic cry. It was ugly crying. The kind that came from 26 years of feeling like she wasn't enough. She sobbed into his chest, her body shaking with the force of it. He held her through it all. One hand cradled the back of her head, the other pressed her against him so tightly she could feel the steady beat of his heart. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He didn't tell her to stop crying. He just held her, his jaw clenched so tight she could hear his teeth grind. I just want them to love me, she whispered against his shirt, her voice small and broken. They should, he said, pressing his lips to her forehead. He inhaled slowly, controlling the urge to go down to the King estate and burn it to the ground. But while they figure that out, let me. The months that followed were split down the middle. Her days were filled with wedding chaos. Bianca's demands were endless. Victoria's criticisms were constant. There were endless fittings for a bridesmaid dress that seemed designed to humiliate her curves rather than flatter them. But her nights belonged to Sanjay. He ordered her favorite foods and watched her eat like it was the most beautiful performance art in the world. He touched her curves with reverence, worshipping the very parts of her body her mother told her to hide. He rebuilt her, brick by brick, every time they tore her down. He noticed everything. How she flinched at words like heavy or lazy. How she apologized for taking up space in a room. How she never ordered dessert, despite being a pastry chef who dreamed in sugar. Each observation fed the growing file in his mind. The file labeled, Reasons the King family will regret everything. He wanted to confront them. He wanted to drive his convoy of black SUVs onto their manicured lawn and demand answers. But Ilara always begged him not to. Please, she would say, just let me get through the wedding. I want to do this one last thing for them. So, out of respect for her, he stayed in the shadows. He waited. The night before the wedding, Ilara appeared at his penthouse door at 2 a.m. Flour dusted her hair like snow. Her hands trembled as she set down her keys on the console table. Exhaustion was carved into every line of her beautiful face. The cake is done, she breathed out. 150 servings. Raspberry coulis filling. Gold leaf detailing. It's perfection. Perfection Bianca won't even acknowledge. Sanjay caught her hands in his. They were ice cold. You're shaking. She swayed slightly, her eyes losing focus. I had to get it perfect. I had to. Something dark and furious moved through Sanjay's chest, a living thing made of protective rage. He pulled her close, feeling how she folded into him like she had been held together by sheer willpower alone. You don't have to go tomorrow, Ilara. Stay here. Sleep. I do, she mumbled, her voice muffled against his chest. One more time. I have to try one more time. I will call you, he said, stroking her hair. If anything happens, call me. I'll be ready, Sanjay. But what he didn't say, what he kept locked behind the calm mask of his face, was that he would make sure everyone at that wedding knew exactly who she belonged to. The wedding day started at 6 a.m. Ilara arrived at the Plaza Hotel with the cake. It was a masterpiece, 5 tiers of architectural sugar work, cascading with handcrafted sugar flowers that looked so real you could almost smell them. The gold leaf caught the early morning light as she and her assistant carefully positioned it on the display table in the center of the ballroom. Is that the best you could do with the gold leaf? The voice came from behind her, sharp and critical. Ilara froze. Victoria King stood there, already dressed in her mother of the bride gown, holding a glass of champagne. It looks a bit sparse, Victoria said, sniffing disdainfully. Ilara's hands stilled on the cake plate. She had used an entire book of 24-karat edible gold leaf. It was opulent. It was excessive. It's exactly what Bianca requested, Mother. Victoria circled the table like a shark circling a wounded seal. Well, I suppose it will have to do. 10 hours of being awake, hands cramping from piping work, burns on her fingers from the hot sugar, and that was what she got. It'll have to do. Mom, Bianca swept into the room, her hair already set in rollers, a team of makeup artists trailing behind her like ducklings. She barely glanced at the cake. "We need you for photos. The getting ready shots." "Of course, darling." Victoria kissed Bianca's cheek, warm and affectionate in a way she had never been with Alara. "You look beautiful already." They left. Neither of them looked back. Alara stood alone in the empty ballroom with her masterpiece, the one no one had actually looked at. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. "Sanjay, how goes the battle?" She stared at the message. She couldn't find words that wouldn't sound pathetic. 3 hours later, Alara was struggling with the bridesmaid dress in a hotel bathroom that was too small for the amount of fabric Victoria had insisted on. It was a lavender tulle nightmare with a boned bodice designed for someone with the lung capacity of a sparrow. She had had it altered, but alterations could only do so much when the design itself was hostile to her body type. The mirror was unforgiving. She saw what her mother saw. Too much. Too much hip, too much thigh, too much space. Her phone buzzed again. "Sanjay, send me a photo." She shouldn't. The dress was ridiculous. She felt exposed. But she needed something. She snapped a quick mirror selfie, her expression tired, but trying to be brave. She sent it before she could overthink it. His response was immediate. The 3 dots appeared instantly. "Sanjay, you're breathtaking. But the dress does not deserve you." "Sanjay, are you sure you can handle them today, Alara?" "Alara, I can handle this." "I have to." "Sanjay, I know you can. The question is whether you should have to." She didn't answer. She just tucked her phone away, took a deep breath that strained the zipper of her dress, and went to join her sisters. The ceremony was beautiful. Bianca was beautiful. Sterling looked at her like she had hung the moon. And Alara. Alara was happy for her sister. She really was. But as she stood at the altar, sweating in the tight dress, watching her father walk Bianca down the aisle with a tear in his eye, a tear he had never shed for Alara, she felt a crack form in her heart. "Overflow seating coordination," the wedding planner said, shoving a clipboard into Alara's hands the moment the ceremony ended. Guests were beginning to drift toward the reception hall. "You'll help direct people to the correct tables." Alara looked down at her dress, the one that matched Serena's and the maid of honors. "I'm in the bridal party. I'm the sister of the bride." "Yes, but your mother said you had volunteered to help," the planner said, her smile professional and dismissive. "The family table is full anyway. You're at table 12. Table 12. Table 12 was near the kitchen doors. It was the table for the second cousins she had met twice and the overflow guests from the groom's side. She took the clipboard. Her fingers were numb. An hour into the reception, Alara was returning from directing an elderly couple to their seats when a hand closed on her arm. Sharp nails dug into her skin. "Excuse me." It was a woman in a sequined dress, holding an empty glass. She didn't look at Alara's face. She looked at the clipboard. "Could you get me another Chardonnay? Make sure it's chilled properly this time." The woman didn't recognize her. She didn't see the bridesmaid dress that matched the other women at the head table. She just saw a brown girl holding a clipboard and made an assumption. Alara opened her mouth to explain. "I'm not staff. I'm the bride's sister. I made that cake over there." The words stuck in her throat. What was the point? In this family, at this wedding, what was the functional difference between her and the staff? Of course, she heard herself say, her voice hollow. She got the wine. She delivered it. The woman didn't say thank you. When Alara returned to the main area, the maid of honor, Bianca's college roommate, Brittany, stood up to give her speech. Alara's hands went cold. She had heard this speech practiced during the bachelorette party she had paid for but wasn't really invited to participate in. "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible." Brittany began, raising her champagne glass. "First, Victoria and Marcus for raising such an incredible daughter." Applause. Victoria glowed, waving regally. "Sterling for being the man Bianca deserves." More applause. "And to my fellow bridesmaids, Serena, thank you for keeping us organized. You are a rock star." Serena beamed. "And to Bianca's maid of honor predecessor who couldn't be here, we miss you." She sat down. That was it. No mention of Alara. Not even a generic and the rest of the bridal party. At the family table, Alara saw Serena lean toward Bianca. Her voice carried over the lull in the music. Did she just forget Alara? Bianca's shrug was elegant, unbothered. She took a sip of her drink. Does it matter? The words hit Alara like a physical blow to the chest. Her champagne glass trembled in her hand. Does it matter? It shouldn't matter. She shouldn't care. But 26 years of this, 26 years of being the invisible daughter, the background character in their perfect lives, it cut bone deep. Family photos. The photographer called out, his voice booming. Immediate family to the terrace, please. Parents and siblings only. Alara stood up automatically. She smoothed her dress. This was it. The formal portraits. This was the irrefutable proof of belonging. She would be in these photos. She would exist in the family album. She made it 3 steps toward the terrace doors before her mother's hand closed on her arm. Not you, dear. Victoria's voice was low. Private. Alara's brain stuttered. The noise of the party seemed to drop away, leaving a ringing silence in her ears. I am immediate family, Alara said, her voice shaking. I'm your daughter. You know what I mean. Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a grimace of social preservation. Don't make a scene, Alara. These photos need to be perfect. And with your proportions, the composition gets complicated. You understand. It's not personal. Everything went very quiet in Alara's head. It was that ringing silence that comes right before a crush. Serena walked past them, linking arms with Bianca. Neither of them looked at Alara. They just kept walking, flanked by their parents, heading to the terrace for photos she wasn't allowed in. Alara turned. She walked blindly toward the back of the venue. She needed air. She needed to breathe. She needed to not scream in the middle of the Plaza Hotel. She found a quiet service hallway, pressed her back against the cold wall, and tried to remember how lungs worked. There you are. Victoria's voice made her flinch. Her mother appeared around the corner, champagne in hand, that tight, Victoria's smile still in place. We need to talk. Not now, Mother. Please. Yes, now. Victoria set down her glass on a service cart. The guest house. We're renovating next month. You'll need to find somewhere else to live. The words took a moment to process. Next month? Mom, I can't find a place in Queens in a month. My business is nearby. You're 26, Alara. It's time you stood on your own 2 feet. Bianca lived there until she was 28. Serena stayed even longer. They were saving for homes with their partners. Victoria's voice went sharp. You're not. You're spending money on that little catering business that barely breaks even. It doesn't barely break even. I'm profitable. And you clearly have money for expensive dresses. Victoria's eyes raked over the lavender gown, lingering on Alara's hips with open distaste. Though perhaps you should invest in a gym membership instead. Think of this as motivation, sweetheart. Motivation. Motivation to lose weight. Find a respectable man. Get your life together. Your sisters both married well. Why can't you? Her father, Dr. Marcus King, appeared then. His face was flushed from the open bar. Everything all right? Just talking to Alara about moving out, Victoria said, smoothing her dress. She's taking it well. Good. Good. Marcus barely looked at Alara. He looked through her. Your mother is right, Alara. Think of it as encouragement. You need to try harder. Your sisters managed to figure it out. Something inside her finally cracked. It wasn't a fracture. It was a complete structural failure. Encouragement to what exactly? Alara asked, her voice trembling. Lose weight? Find a rich man? Be more like them? To fit in. Victoria's voice went ice cold. To be part of this family instead of embarrassing it. Is that really so much to ask? Alara stared at her mother. She stared at her father. She looked at 2 people who should have loved her unconditionally and instead gave her a list of conditions she would never, ever meet. She didn't say another word. She pushed past them, through the service corridor, past the confused waitstaff, and burst out the back entrance into the parking lot. The evening air hit her like a wall. She pulled out her phone. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. She stared at Sanjay's contact photo, him smiling at her across a table, caught in a moment when he didn't know she was taking the picture, looking at her like she was the only thing in the universe that mattered. She pressed call. It rang once. Alara. His voice came through immediately. Concerned. Alert. Are you all right? She sank down onto the curb, the lavender dress pooling around her like a bruise. "You were right about them," she sobbed, the words tearing out of her throat. "Please, just take me away. I'm on my way." The line clicked dead, but the connection remained, a tether pulling tight across the city. Ilara sat on the curb in her ruined dress, the tool gathering dirt from the asphalt, counting down the seconds. Inside the venue, the wedding continued. She could hear the muffled thump of the bass from the DJ, the bursts of laughter, the clinking of glasses. She was outside it all, literally and figuratively. An exile in the parking lot of the life she was supposed to be part of. Then, she heard it. It wasn't just a car engine, it was a low-frequency growl that vibrated in the pavement beneath her feet. It was the sound of raw power approaching. Headlights cut through the evening dimness, blindingly bright white LEDs that sliced through the shadows. 3 black SUVs pulled into the lot, moving in a tight, synchronized formation that screamed military precision. They didn't park, they claimed the space. The lead vehicle was a Bentley Bentayga, his Bentley. Ilara looked up, her vision blurred with tears, her heart hammering against her ribs. He came. He actually came. Before we see what happens when a man like Ryu Sanjay crashes a high-society wedding, I have a question for you. Ilara just made the most difficult call of her life. She asked to be rescued from her own family. Have you ever given everything to people who gave you nothing back? If Ilara's pain is hitting too close to home right now, hit that subscribe button right now. If you want to see what happens when a woman finally decides she's worth more, you need to be subscribed to see Sanjay deliver the karma the King family deserves. Now, let's see what happens when the King family meets the dragon. The car doors opened with a heavy, expensive thunk. Ryu Sanjay stepped out first. If he looked dangerous in the kitchen, tonight he looked like violence wrapped in a 3-piece charcoal suit. His face was a mask of cold, controlled fury. Behind him, Hoon and 6 other men emerged from the support vehicles. They weren't wearing catering uniforms tonight. They were wearing tactical suits, and though they were professional, the bulges of holstered weapons under their jackets were not subtle. They didn't pretend to hide them. The few wedding guests lingering outside for smoke breaks froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. A valet attendant dropped a set of keys. Sanjay's eyes didn't scan the crowd. He didn't look at the architecture. He locked onto Ilara immediately. For him, the rest of the world ceased to exist. He moved toward her, his stride long and eating up the distance. People scrambled out of his path as if he were radioactive. Someone whispered, "Who the hell is that?" No one answered. When he reached Ilara, he stopped just inches from her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. The careful distance he had maintained for months shattered. He didn't care about propriety. He didn't care about audiences. His hands came up, cupping her face, his thumbs rough and warm as they wiped away the mascara-stained tears. "I'm here, AGI." His voice was low, lethal, using the Korean term of endearment he usually saved for when they were alone. "I've got you." Ilara reached for him, grabbing fistfuls of his shirt, and he pulled her up and into his chest in one smooth, powerful motion. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling the scent of her fear and her perfume. He stripped off his suit jacket and draped it around her shoulders, enveloping her in his warmth, his scent. Then he turned. He placed his body between her and the venue, a human shield. His eyes scanned the faces of the people watching, hunting for threats. "Which ones?" he asked, his voice a rumble against her back. "All of them," she whispered into his shirt. His jaw went tight. The muscle jumped. "Then watch." The commotion had drawn attention. The double doors of the venue swung open. Victoria King pushed through the crowd of onlookers, her hostess smile, already plastered on, damage control mode fully activated. "Ilara? What is this? Who are?" She stopped. She looked at Sanjay. She looked at the men behind him. Her smile faltered. "Mr. Ryu? Mrs. King." He cut her off like she was nothing. "I am the man who is about to explain to you what happens when you mistreat what is mine." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was the kind of quiet that made survival instincts scream run. Victoria straightened, trying to regain her height. "I am her mother, and I don't appreciate this spectacle at my daughter's wedding." Sanjay stepped forward. Victoria instinctively stepped back. "You charge your daughter rent to live in your guest house." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation thrown like a dagger. Is that what mothers do? Sanjay asked, tilting his head. You charge her for parking. You make her pay for her own bridesmaid dress, a dress you chose to humiliate her. Now see here, young man. Dr. Marcus King appeared, his face flushed, using his chief of surgery voice, the one used to being obeyed without question. This is a family matter. Sanjay rounded on him. No. You listen to me. He took another step. Marcus King, a man who intimidated interns for a living, looked suddenly very small. You're a surgeon, correct? Sanjay moved closer, predatory. You stood by while your wife spent 26 years performing psychological surgery on your daughter with no anesthesia. You watched them cut away her confidence, slice apart her self-worth, and you didn't just watch, you handed them the scalpel. So do not talk to me about what is a family matter. Serena tried next, stepping out from behind her father, her voice shaking slightly. This is wildly inappropriate. You're making a scene. Sanjay's eyes cut to her. Dead. Cold. You're the sister who asked if it mattered when your sister got excluded from a speech at a wedding where she made the cake for free. A cake that took her 3 days. Serena went white. Several guests nearby shifted uncomfortably. They had heard that comment too. This is my wedding. Bianca's voice cracked through the parking lot as she appeared, tears of frustration in her eyes. How dare you ruin my day? Get out of here. Your wedding. Sanjay turned slowly toward the bride. Let's talk about your wedding. Your sister's seat assignment was table 12. With second cousins she has met twice. While you put your sorority sisters at the family table. His smile was terrifying. It was a baring of teeth. And then my favorite part. You excluded her from family photos. Your own sister. Because according to your mother, her proportions would ruin the composition. The silence in the parking lot was suffocating. You could hear a pin drop. Victoria tried again, her voice desperate now. This is a private family. Nothing about this is private anymore. Sanjay's voice cracked like a whip, echoing off the stone facade of the hotel. He turned to address the crowd. The way he commanded the space, this parking lot, these people, this moment, was absolute. How many of you saw Lara King parking cars tonight? He asked the guests. Directing you to your tables? Getting wine for people who thought she was staff. Several people wouldn't meet his eyes. Uncomfortable shifting rippled through the crowd. Sanjay turned back to the family. She is a pastry chef. A damn good one. But you treat her like she is playing with an easy-bake oven. Victoria, one of Victoria's society friends, hissed from the sidelines. That is Ryu Sanjay, the Ryu family. From Seoul, Victoria's face drained of color. Yes, Sanjay heard it. He smiled. The Ryu family. Let me be very clear about what that means. He moved toward Victoria again. His crew shifted forward automatically, a coordinated wave of threat. Your husband's hospital board? I know 3 of the majority shareholders personally. We play golf. He turned to Serena. Your law firm? I'm friends with the managing partner. In fact, my company owns the building you lease. He paused, letting the weight of his influence crush the air out of their lungs. Let that sink in. I am telling you this so you understand. Alara isn't your disappointing daughter anymore. She is under my protection. And I protect what is mine very, very thoroughly. We love our daughter, Marcus stammered, his voice weak. You don't know anything about love. The explosion of rage in Sanjay's voice made several people jump. Alara flinched. It was the first time she had ever seen him lose control. If you loved her, Sanjay snarled, you would have noticed she stopped eating around you. You would have noticed that she apologizes for existing. You would have noticed that she flinches when someone mentions her body. The words landed like bullets. Alara stepped forward. She gently placed a hand on Sanjay's arm. He stopped instantly, his breathing ragged, but he didn't step back. He's right, Alara said. Her voice shook, but she held her head high. He's right about all of it. But I need to say this myself. She looked at Bianca. I made your cake. Raspberry filling because citrus makes you sick. I spent 40 hours on those sugar flowers. And you didn't even look at it. Bianca opened her mouth to protest. No. Alara's voice strengthened. I'm talking now. You thanked everyone in that speech. The florist got mentioned. The DJ. The venue coordinator. But not me. Not your sister. She turned to Serena. You asked if it mattered. If I mattered. And your answer was no. Finally, she looked at her parents. "You said I needed motivation," she said, tears running freely now, but she didn't wipe them away. "Motivation to be someone I'm not. Someone lighter, thinner, quieter, smaller." She took a deep breath, inhaling the night air, feeling the weight of the jacket on her shoulders. "I spent 26 years trying to fit into a family that was never going to make room for me. I'm done trying." Sanjay's hand found the small of her back, steady, grounding. "Are we done here?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I'm done." "Hoon." Sanjay didn't look away from the family. "Get everything from the guest house tonight. Put it in storage. I don't want her going back there. Ever." He turned to his crew. "Anyone tries to contact her, I want to know immediately. Anyone shows up at her business, handle it." Phones were out everywhere now. People were filming. This moment was being broadcast in real time. Sanjay turned to Alara and his face transformed. The rage vanished, replaced by a tenderness that was almost painful to witness. "Let's go home." He guided her toward the Bentley, his body shielding her from the flashes. He opened the door himself, helping her in like she was made of glass and gold. Before getting in, he turned back one final time. "Mrs. King. Dr. King." He stepped forward, just one step. "I am going to say this once." His voice dropped to that lethal quiet again. "If you try to contact her, guilt her, manipulate her, or disparage her, I will make it my personal mission to dismantle everything you have built. Your reputation, your social standing, your careers." The smile that crossed his face was death smiling. "And unlike you, I don't bluff." He slid into the car. The heavy door sealed shut, cutting off the noise of the wedding. The convoy pulled away, leaving the wedding guests and one destroyed family standing in a parking lot, watching the youngest king daughter disappear with a man who had just declared war on anyone who dared to hurt her. Inside the Bentley, the silence was instant and heavy. Alara collapsed against Sanjay's chest, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. The adrenaline had crashed, leaving only grief. He held her tight, his jaw clenched, his body still vibrating with the aftershocks of his rage. "I should have come sooner," he murmured into her hair. "I should have pulled you out months ago." "I wasn't ready," she whispered. The interior of the car was a sanctuary of leather and low ambient light. Alara pressed her face into his shirt, soaking the expensive fabric. "Did I do the right thing?" Her voice was small, broken. "You did the only thing." His lips pressed against her temple. "You chose yourself. They're going to hate me. They already didn't love you properly, baby. There is nothing left to lose." She pulled back slightly, looking up at him with swollen eyes. "What if I regret this tomorrow? What if I wake up and I miss them?" His expression softened. He used his thumb to brush away a fresh tear. "Then tomorrow we will deal with it. Together. But tonight you are mine. And I am going to take care of you." She fell asleep before they reached his building. He felt the exact moment her body went heavy against him, surrendering to the exhaustion. He kept holding her, mentally cataloging every single thing her family had done, adding it to the debt he intended to collect. When they reached the penthouse, he didn't wake her to walk. He carried her. He carried her straight past the living room, into the master bedroom. He woke her gently to help her out of the ruined dress. She stood in the middle of his massive walk-in closet, shivering. "I don't have any clothes," she realized. "Hoon hasn't brought my things yet." Sanjay opened a set of double doors on the far side of the closet. "I have been shopping," he said simply. The rack was full. Beautiful clothes in rich fabrics and bold colors. Emerald greens, deep burgundies, sapphire blues. And every single piece was in her size. Not the size her mother wanted her to be. Her size. Cuts that would celebrate her curves, not hide them. "Sanjay." Alara's hand covered her mouth. "When did you?" "Over the last few months. Every time I saw something that would look beautiful on you." He pulled out a silk robe. "I'd burn down the city for you, Alara. Buying a few dresses is the easy part." She broke down again, and he held her through it. All the tears she'd been holding back for years. All the grief for a family that never deserved her. All the fear of the unknown. Later, after she'd showered, after he'd given her one of his shirts to sleep in because the silk robe was too fancy for crying, they sat on the couch. The city lights painted patterns across the floor. She talked. She unpacked it all. The years of small cruelties she had normalized. What if they were right, she whispered finally, looking down at her hands. What if I am too much? His hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. You are too much, he agreed. You are too beautiful, too talented, too passionate, and too good for them. His thumb traced her bottom lip. And you are exactly enough for me. I don't want you to be smaller. I don't want you to be quieter. I want you exactly like this. You promise. I promise. They don't get to define you anymore. I do. And my definition is perfect. Morning came with sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Alara woke with a hunger she couldn't describe. The smell of food drew her to the kitchen. Sanjay stood at the stove, dress shirt rolled to his elbows, looking effortlessly domestic. You are awake, he said, turning. Come, have breakfast. The table was set with a traditional Korean breakfast. Banchan in small dishes, steamed rice, grilled mackerel, and a rich soybean stew. He served her. He watched with satisfaction as she took the first bite. Then another. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Hoon cleared the guest house, he said. Everything is in storage. Your keys have been returned to your father's mailbox. Another buzz. His expression darkened. What? Alara asked, pausing. Social media. He turned the phone toward her. The wedding hashtag was trending. Videos were everywhere. The confrontation in the parking lot. The Bentley. Her speech. Her family's stunned faces. The comments were dissecting every moment. Hashtag Team Alara was trending. Everyone is going to think I'm. Alara's anxiety spiked. Let them think, Sanjay said, taking the phone back. The internet has a short memory. But your family, they will remember this forever. Her own phone started ringing on the counter. Mom. Then Serena. She stared at it, frozen. You don't have to answer, Sanjay said quietly. Not today. A text from Serena popped up on the lock screen. We need to talk. You embarrassed the whole family. Dad is furious. Alara laughed, a bitter, broken sound. I embarrassed them. Another text, this time from Bianca. You ruined my wedding. I hope you're happy. Don't bother coming to brunch. Sanjay read over her shoulder. His eyes went dark. He took her phone. He typed quickly. This is Ryu Sanjay. Any further contact will be considered harassment. Communicate through my legal team if necessary. He hit send. Then he blocked all their numbers. One by one. You can't just. Alara started. I can and I did. He set the phone down. They don't get access to you anymore. You can unblock them later if you want. In a year. Or 10. But not today. Today, you heal. 3 days passed. Alara stayed in the penthouse, existing in a cocoon of safety. Sanjay worked from home, always nearby, always watching to make sure she was okay. On the third evening, Sanjay found her in the kitchen, staring at the city lights. Get dressed, he said. We're going out. I don't think I can face people yet. You've been inside for 3 days. His voice was gentle. Walk with me. 20 minutes later, they were walking through Koreatown. His hand was secured around hers, a physical anchor. The neighborhood was alive. Night vendors called out specials. Neon signs painted the sidewalks in electric blue and pink. It was loud, chaotic, and real. They passed the restaurant where they had met, Obsidian. Alara stopped, looking at the sleek entrance. That's where it started, she said softly. That's where I was hiding. No. Sanjay turned her to face him. That is where I found what I was looking for. They kept walking. Past shops, past restaurants, past couples laughing. She felt anonymous here. Safe. Do you think they'll ever understand? She asked. I don't care if they do. His hand tightened on hers. Do you? She thought about it. The silence from her phone. The peace in her chest. No, she said. I don't. They stopped at a newsstand on the corner. Magazine covers were displayed in rows. Vogue, GQ, Bon Appetit. One caught her eye. It was a copy of Culinary New York. The headline screamed in bold yellow text, Rising Star, Pastry Chef Alara King takes Manhattan by storm. And there she was. On the cover. It was a photo taken in his kitchen, weeks ago. She was wearing her chef's whites, dusting sugar onto a tart. She wasn't smiling for the camera. She was focused, confident, glowing with competence. She looked powerful. When did you? She turned to him, eyes wide. Last week. Before the wedding, he said. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist right there on the street corner. I would need to see it. I needed you to see yourself the way I see you. Her eyes burned. You planned all of this. I told you. I have been preparing. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that only she got to see. I just needed you to be ready to leave. Thank you, she whispered, for coming to get me. He stopped walking. He framed her face with both hands, the neon lights of the city reflecting in his dark eyes. Every time you call, he said, his voice absolute, I will come to you. Anywhere. Anytime. He kissed her then, under the streetlights of Koreatown, surrounded by the noise of the city. And for the first